Hi everybody. We will give you a few minutes to jump on if you're trying to find us, if you're going to watch live and trying to find us. If this is your first time here, then we're glad you're here. My name's Lindsay. This is Jess. And tonight we're answering the question, how can I make center feel comfortable for my reiner? If you are watching us live and you are experiencing technical difficulty, if it keeps cutting out for you, you may prefer to watch the replay. You can watch the replay. If you sign up for our email list, you'll get the replay delivered right to your inbox next week on Tuesday. You can do that by hitting the sign up button that's on the cover photo of our Facebook page. You can do that by hitting the link that's in our bio if you're finding us on Instagram. But that is the best way to watch it interruption free if you do have a poor internet connection like so many of us that live in the country do. If you're looking for answers on something that we may have already provided information about and some tips about, you can find those by going to our website, which is hayescofellperformancehorses.com. You can go there, and under the education tab are any of the freebies that we have. So we have some free videos in there, and we also have a search bar where you can type in anything that you're looking for, and anywhere that we have discussed it in one of our lives will pop up, and it will take you right to the timestamp in that live video where we've discussed it. So you can get right to the answers to your questions by going to the education page on our website. If you have a question or a topic that you'd like to submit, you can send that into our email. That email is hayescofellph@gmail.com. We'd be happy to set that up. If we haven't already covered it, we'd be happy to set that up and do a whole Q&A session around your question. And what else do we have? Momentum, our online coaching program, is open right now. So if you are looking for further support on your riding, on anything to do with reining and ranch riding and improving yourself as a horse person, we have created this online coaching platform where we are delivering exercises, we're delivering videos where we're demonstrating exercises, we're doing audio lessons that you can play when you're at the barn so that you're never missing that support from your coach. And our shout out this week goes to Kim Darling, who is a Momentum member who we have actually never met in person. And she has been utilizing the coaching that we've been doing on ranch riding. So every week I've been going live and giving some coaching on each maneuver inside of AQHA Ranch Riding Pattern 1. And Kim went to her first show of the season a week or two ago, and she marked a 72 and she won her class. And she posted a video inside of Momentum where she's got some feedback from us about things that she can keep working on, and a whole bunch of congratulations from the Momentum members. So special shout out to Kim for sharing that, and congratulations on her win. And if anybody has any further questions about Momentum, you should send me a message and ask me about that, because that is only open for 7 more members, and then we're shutting it down, and it will never be offered at this price again. The price is going to go up on that. Okay, looks like a whole bunch of people are jumping on. We've got Chuck and Shirley, we've got Jen and Elise saying hi guys, and Robin, Tammy, Louise, Lacey, Rose. Awesome. Gang's all here. Okay, so let's get into some of these things, and then we will come back to this question of yours. I'm guessing that's Shirley that's typing that about, is it good to work your horse at center? We'll get back to that, but let's dive into this first. So do you have some things that you want to say about making center feel comfortable? Actually, you know what? We should first maybe explain that if anybody's not totally sure what we mean. What does it mean? What is she talking about when she says, I need to make my horse feel comfortable at center? Can you just talk about that for 1 second? What happens to horses at center?
I think as it relates to reiners, we do everything at center. We walk to center, we either lope off, we spin, we change leads there. So common problems horses have is they go to center and they're just a little bit touchy. They want to they know they're going to do something, so where are they going to go? I think one thing that should be said is it's not even just about reiners. Every event has the same problems, just in different ways. Barrel horses at the gates get anticipating, rope horses in the box, even Western pleasure horses, when the announcers, say walk, jog, lope, after a while they figure that stuff out.
They know what's happening, yeah.
So it's all about anticipation, from the rider and the horse. But we are talking as it kind of works in the reiner's idea, but all the stuff is the exact same that you can do for every different discipline when your horse is, looking to do stuff and get ahead of you just a little bit. It's so important in the reiners because as we show them, we don't want to take a hold of them and show it off. A barrel horse, they can hold onto their face a little bit. A rope horse, you can hang on to that bit just a little bit. But a reiner and any show horses, Western pleasure horses too, you don't want to have to take hold of them and remind them, hey, because as soon as you do that, the judge is going to mark your scorecards down. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, and it says, I can't remember exactly how it's worded in the rule book, any movement that's not dictated to completely is considered a loss of control, something like that. So if your horse is moving around at center and it's not dictated to completely, that movement is not dictated to completely, it's considered a loss of control, and that has to show up on your scorecard somewhere.
Definitely takes it away from the maneuver.
Yeah.
One of the ways that we see it so much as coaches is people walk into center, or even if they've done a run in, they back up, they're standing at center. The horse is supposed to stand and be, flat-footed and waiting for cues. And we see it so often where the people are worried because the horses are going to do something. The horses are worried because the people are going to do something, and it just snowballs so fast. And from a coach's point of view, there's only so much we can do. If you tell somebody just relax and stuff, there's only so much you can do at that point.
Yeah, what I would love, since we've got a bunch of people on here, and I know a bunch of these people that are on here have shown in the reining, what I would love is to hear what your horses do at center. Like I posted earlier today, and this was a live that we were supposed to do last week, and I know a lot of people were saying, oh, I need this one. I'm going to tune in for this one. I really need this. What is it that your horses are doing at center that made you want to jump on here and watch this? What are they doing when they get to center? Or how are you feeling at center? What is the problem that you're having at center? I would love to see some of your descriptions before we really move on and start addressing some of these things, because we kind of have an idea of what things are, what things we see happening. But if you guys have something specific that's happening, would love to see that. Are they just dancing around? Are they anticipating loping off? Are they kicking out? Are they swapping leads? It would be great if you could just get into the chat box and start to contribute what your horses are doing wrong there. So we have some do's and don'ts that we're going to go through to try to help you, and we'll try to keep up with some of these. Okay, Haley's saying won't stand still the only time he has energy. Marissa is saying backs up. Is this for a reining pattern? Marissa gets to center and starts backing up. I always think it's interesting to see some of these things. Sometimes they're a little bit different. Okay, so let's go into some of the do's and don'ts. Do you want to do one first, or?
Do the do's or do the don'ts first?
do one do. We have Jesse Joe, my mare has nervous twitches, kicking out a back foot and mouthing the bit. Robin, leaping into the spin, like a lot of energy going into it. Yep, hear ya on that one. Seen that before.
So for
You have
me,
a good do?
I think one of the biggest things for do is you need to touch that horse a lot. So many people walk into center, they're nervous because their horse is going to get nervous. They're walking in there and they're already nervous. They're already worked up. And they aren't riding the same as they do at home. And they go in there, their feet come off that horse because they're thinking, if I don't touch them, the horse won't react wrong. And then when they do get to center and they go to move them, they're real snappy because they haven't been touching their face, haven't been touching the belly, so they kind of come in and bang them. And then the horses are waiting for something and they get hypersensitive. I was explained it along, not from a reiner point of view, but from a roping point of view. When you practice at home, make yourself nervous. Practice, the one my dad always used was, it's the 10th go around of the NFR, you know, everything's on the line. You have to practice like you're nervous. And make your horse believe that that's a normal feeling that he doesn't get nervous about. So even at home, there's times I'll walk into center and I will jerk my body up a little harder than I normally would. I'll tense right up. And I actually want to teach him that that's a calm down cue. I take both my spurs, I put them on his belly, I lift their belly up, drop their head, and that's a calm down cue, so that if I'm showing and I accidentally bang one or I accidentally come in a little too fast or a non-pro comes in and maybe just a little bit too hard, the horse isn't looking to jump away from those spurs. It isn't looking to get into problems. They've been in that situation a million times, and we've taught them how to hopefully react the best. You need the things to do. You need to put your legs near them. You need to take their face. You know, if they get nervous in a paid warm-up, you need to pull their face around, walk them forward in the bridle, and touch them a lot, and touch them big. Don't just have your hand up there and, you know, whoa, and snap it. You touch them a lot where it's real dull and boring for them, so that they settle down.
Yeah, just to elaborate on that, one of the things I like to explain to people is that most of us, when we get in the show pen, our instinct is to back off. We get nervous, the judge is watching us, we want to back off, and especially if we feel that energy. A lot of horses that have been shown before, they start to feel like a loaded spring when they get into the show pen, and so our instinct is to, like you said, take our legs off and try not to interfere with them at all, and you know, definitely not make them think that we might want them to go forward, we might want them to go faster. That seems to be what people do a lot. And really what that horse needs in that moment, especially if they feel that you're nervous, they're now being taken away from the herd, they're out into the middle of the arena, they actually need your legs wrapped around them. Your legs hanging down on their sides is like a natural sedative, right? It's the same as, you know, like a squeeze chute or anything that we use to calm livestock. They need that feeling on either side of them. They actually need to know where your legs are so that doesn't increase their anxiety. So where most of us get in, the judge is watching us and we kind of freeze and take all of our aids off, we're always better to actually kind of sit deeper, wrap our legs around more, and be really slow and deliberate with all of our movements so that our horse really knows where we are, and that we're still going to come in there and ask them to move their body and think about what their body is doing. Let's just check in with some of these, make sure that we're getting all of these things that people are saying here. Backs up, leaps into the spin, nervous twitches.
So I think the one about
Kicking out at
mouthing
a
the
back.
bit, where that kind of comes from is a lot of times people will walk in with the reins kind of loose, this is how I need to show. And then the horse reacts a little bit and the people jump into their face real hard and bang them. And then the horse backs up, so then they spur them forward. And then the horse goes forward and they snap their face. And the horse just doesn't know where to go. Anything with anticipation and that worry is because that horse does not know where it's supposed to go and how it's supposed to get there. So they're guessing, they're worried, well, maybe if I go here, maybe if I go there. And like what Lindsay said about the legs on, if you make that a cue, a calm down cue, before you go in, you teach it as you're at home, their ears will go forward, they relax their head and they go, thank you, I understand. And they will last a lot longer as as show horses, that's for sure.
Sarah says, my mare especially doesn't like the patterns where you're stopped at center at the start of the pattern. She wants to go, and if we just go into the lope, we're okay. But if we have to start with spins, we travel in our spins, which we don't do any other time. Let's come back to that. I probably have an opposite to most. Working my horse, she will gravitate to center so she can rest. Working her at center, she gets sluggish. Her mouthing the bit actually has nothing to do with the bit. She does it without a bit in her mouth even when she gets nervous. It's almost like a jaw stretch thing. Yeah.
It's nervous in the brain. Doesn't matter what bit you put in them.
Yeah.
It's nervous of the brain. They're worried about where they're going to go. And they've figured out to play with their mouth as the...
And they need that direction. The direction from your legs, the direction from your bit, the direction from all of your aids. When horses are anxious in the herd, they look to the horse that's going to give them the direction to keep them safe. They're looking for the same thing from you. That's what you do. Giving them the direction is what you do to calm them. It's not like a soothing voice or, I don't know, some of the things that I was taught growing up, use a soothing voice or pet them on the neck. You need to give them direction. That's what they're looking for. That's what makes sense to them.
I think petting them on the neck is kind of depends on how you do it. Because
you think it's really offensive to pet a horse on the neck when they're nervous.
If they're nervous, you can't pet them and sit there and say, good boy.
If they're misbehaving because they're nervous, if they're moving their feet, if they're doing things that are not asked for because they're nervous, you can't pet them.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're nervous and they're sitting there but they're still behaving, I reach my hand under their neck all the time and scratch them. I'm okay with that, but I see so many people, the horse is snorting and jumping sideways.
Spooks and jumps to the side and they get a pat for it.
And they say, good boy, good boy.
Yeah.
I think that's a tricky thing. I think some do's for showing, definitely the paid warm-ups, go into some classes where you can take hold of their face a little bit. All that stuff is to get them trained to the idea that you can be a show horse and you can go to center comfortably and you can do this job. I think those are just so important. If I have one that wants to dance at center, when I do a paid warm-up, I'll take him into center and I might just walk and trot some circles where I'm really taking his head towards his inside shoulder and then his outside shoulder and just really manipulate that face with the bridle. And they don't have to spin at center all the time, but they can work, and then I'll bring them back into center and I say, whoa, and let them relax there. But the biggest thing is, if anybody's watched me do paid warm-ups or school on horses at horse shows, is I'll really bait them. I'll move my legs. Sometimes I'll even just snap my legs down, to really try to explain to that horse, you're okay. And I won't snap my legs down and then go spin and start, we see it all the time. People will.
You don't do it if the horse is already nervous.
No, I do it as like nothing's going to happen. You're okay. I think for the don'ts, the list is pretty simple. Stop spurring. Everybody will walk in, their horse is nervous, so they just get going, and then they start spinning. and then they go, well, I just want to spin faster, so they spur on them, and they just build up all that energy, and I just need to get out of center, I just need to get away. That's really hard on horses because you're buying into that. You're
creating it.
You're emphasizing, okay, you're gonna get spurred here, you're gonna get pushed on, you're gonna get, and we're gonna get out of here without the respect and the way I need you to be to walk out of center. I need you to walk out of center with a soft chin. I need you to behave. And if that involves I have to do some more paid warm-ups, or go to a little club show or something, so be it. Take your however many steps out of center where you kind of have your leg on them and you walk them, and then don't go run them.
I think I just want to add to that. So plan to use paid warm-ups, plan to use schooling classes, plan to use even, smaller classes that are not quite as important to do some schooling at center. Do plan to use those. Don't assume that your horse is going to stay honest and relaxed at center. A reiner's going to anticipate things at center just like a barrel horse is going to anticipate things at the gate. You have to assume that. You have to be prepared and have these tools to use, and you have to not take it personally. I feel like center is a big place where people get a huge mental block about it, and they think like, I just need to do this right, or I just need to, and they get all worked up about it at center and outside of the pen and leading up to the horse show. And there is work to be done. Horses are patternistic. If we do everything at center, they're going to develop that pattern. We're going to have to do some work to maintain that honesty at center and that comfort level at center. Take that feeling like you've done something wrong, or that your horse doesn't like showing, or, take all that out of the equation. Don't take it personally. It's just a thing you have to do with a animal that's as patternistic as they are. Do you want to talk about relaxing for the rider?
So one thing I guess I do myself, and I get other people to do too, is count your steps. I hum a lot. Anybody that knows me, when I was younger, I used to ride a lot of sale barn horses. Stuff that I didn't even know. People would pay me $30. They'd have the thing saddled. I'd ride it in the ring, and sometimes they were broke. Half the time they were goofy. And you could always tell the more nervous a horse is, the more I would hum, and I would stay relaxed and just chill out that extra little bit. And I think that's so important. Whoever, I apologize, I don't remember who put on there about their horse actually gets lazy at center. You can control the momentum going in and out of center. If I have one that's quite lazy and dies out at center, then yeah, I'm going to trot that thing right up into center, stop them really hard, very military-like, keep my adrenaline going, here I go. If I have one that's a little nervous, when I go into center, I'll sit there and just, we're just going for a trail ride. And that's the mentality I want to have. When we used to ride a lot of sale barns when I was younger, I didn't know what I was getting on. I was just making money, and, for $30, I'd ride anything with 4 feet on it. And you'd get up in the stirrups on some of those things, and people would lie to you every once in a while and tell you this was a nice, quiet horse. So really quickly, I had to figure out what the horse I was on and how to keep his brain. And giving them their face, taking my legs off of them, never worked. Turning them, keeping my face on their mouth, letting them know I will lead you and I will, make this come around. So if I'm walking into center on one that's quite nervous, I might, as I come up there and I go to turn to center, I'm going to hold his face a little bit longer and just bring him over towards center. I'm going to hum. I'm going to have my legs moving just a little bit. You know, you listen to me the whole time. And when you can keep the focus on you from that horse, he's not going to look at all the scary things out in the stands. He's not going to look at that, you know, that scary judge sitting down there, that scribe with a notepad. The more you can keep his attention when you walk to center and it's on you, they're not going to get worried and looking off into that next thing. They're not going to get antsy and stuff because they're waiting for you. Hey, what are you telling me to do? And I think that's a big thing, is be the leader in that moment instead of sitting there going, oh my gosh, the world might come to an end and my horse is going to do this, my horse is going to do that. You walk in there going, no, this is how this is going to go. I'm going to control that momentum. I'm going to slow myself down.
You have to learn how to control your own physiology, because you get to center, your heart starts pumping, your motion all becomes quicker and jerkier. You're actually thinking faster than you normally do. So, you know, your adrenaline's pumping. Everything is, everything's happening fast. Everything feels like it's happening faster. So you have to learn how to control that. Like where you're saying you're humming, but if somebody's here for a lesson and they're talking quiet, you know, they're talking in a low voice to their horse to try to settle them, you're always telling them not to do that, right? If you can control your physiology and you are truly relaxed, then your actions, your voice, everything is going to be soothing to the horse as long as you're still telling them the direction, right? You don't sit there with your legs off and a loose rein and go, and try to get them to settle.
No, I hum a rhythm.
Yeah.
And I've taught them at home.
And humming a rhythm is what helps you slow your breathing down so that you are controlling your physiology, right?
Mm-hmm. And I've also taught them at home that, like a million times, I've ran some big fast circles, I've hummed to them, and I've pulled on their face and said, okay, we're going to slow down. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got them into that position. Instead of hiding, I have to set them up, like somebody said that their horse never does it at home. Then you've never set up an environment to teach that horse to be a show horse. You have to put him in those situations, whether it be you haul out to other arenas.
You go to a clinic, you lope a pattern in front of a bunch of people, you set your phone up to record you so you feel nervous, right. You pull your horse away from the group so they're nervous, whatever it is.
One that I'll do on a nervous horse.
Set up a Facebook Live, go live with your pattern. That'll probably make you nervous.
I like to take them and get them just a little bit worked up. You know, maybe take them into the corner of the arena, really work on a turnaround, let's say, counter bend them things, and really get into them, really get that blood pumping on them. And then turn them around, walk them up into center just like I'm going to show. And you have to set it up the most realistic to how you're going to show. So your blood's pumping a little bit, you're nervous, you've just turned that horse around, his blood's a little up, and then you turn around and say, okay, I'm going to walk into center and I'm going to slow everything down and I'm going to make him do this pattern at my speed. It's so important. It's not just, especially in our disciplines, it's not just about teaching them to stop, spin, change leads. I mean, those are pretty important too, but teaching them how to control their adrenaline and have them, when they are adrenaline high, to say, I'll come to you and I'll come back to you. I think that's a hard thing to teach a horse, but the most important thing to teach a horse, because very seldom at most ratings does the most talented horse win. It's the horse that's honest, Eddie, and wants to be a show horse, and that only works if you've taught them to come to you when there's a problem. Mm-hmm. You know, things that I've told customers over the years that, you know, just try to get them into the show and keep them relaxed as they go to center. A common one that I used to tell a bunch of people is every step that horse makes, I want you to squeeze and release your toes. I want you to basically walk with your toes as you go to center. Is it that important? Not really. It creates a little bit of rhythm, but it really keeps the person focused on something. Some silly ones I've done over the years. One person, I remember I handed them a rock one day. They were nervous as heck. I just handed them a rock. I said, here, put this in your hand. They come out and they said, what was the rock for? I said, well, it was just because you went the whole pattern thinking about the dang rock instead of worrying about everything else. And sometimes those things have to happen. Is you got to be able to make your brain go to something else and not worry about, well, the coulds and woulds and, you know, it might go wrong. My God, if you worried about everything that could go wrong when you show horses, you know, you'd never do this deal. Think about what could go right. Think about how that horse is going to be calm. You know, hey, I got confidence in this, and I have confidence because I have worked this horse up enough times, got his adrenaline going, and then I could bring it back and I could control it. I have the confidence because I know I can work with that. Not, you know, I go to center and I worry all the time. What's your favorite trick? When you're showing, your horse is nervous, what's your favorite go-to?
At center.
Walking to center, everybody's
favorite
staring
trick?
at you. Yeah, what's your favorite go-to? Your horse is nervous. What do you...
I feel like I block out absolutely everything else, and all I focus on is how I'm directing my horse. And I feel like it takes a really long time to be able to do that and not have your attention be broken by the judge or the people in the stands or the baby stroller that's going by and maybe spooking your horse, or, you know, whatever. It takes a long time to...
Is it our baby stroller and it's out of
Our
control?
our kids are... Because they are kids. Our horses are stroller broke, but our kids and our stroller is out of control. No, I feel like what I do is I am now able to block out everything else and just focus on how I'm guiding my horse. And it is a balance, becoming like really focused on what you're doing and what you're feeling in that moment is a skill to develop, because sometimes when people get hyper focused, it's an energetic type of focus and it actually makes things worse. So focusing on being a very relaxed, very present in the body type of focus. I like what you said about the rock. I would never want to hold a rock when I was showing, but a lot of times in my equitation clinics and when I'm trying to get people to relax, I'll tell them to wiggle their toes inside of their boots. If you can wiggle your toes and you can wiggle your fingers, it creates relaxation throughout your whole body. You can't have relaxed fingers without having some relaxation throughout the rest of your arm, and you can't have relaxed wiggling toes without having some relaxation throughout the rest of your leg. And sometimes just drawing attention to those things is enough to bring you back to being kind of conscious and present instead of spiraling out of control with your anxiety.
I think one thing that should be said, or kind of touched on a little bit too, is don't surround yourself with weird people. Or maybe weird isn't the right word.
Yeah, don't surround yourself with people who amp you up before you go in or make you,
For me,
anxious.
The biggest one is I have my routine. I like my routine. Mm-hmm. I need the time to I want to wrap my horse's legs. I want to check my saddle pad. Like, there's just a routine that I have, and that gives me some comfort. Just the way that I do it. And there's certain people when they're around, and they might mean well. Hey, do you need anything? You're doing
hey,
good.
How you feeling?
Yeah. My God, go home, chill out.
Or I had somebody right before I went, and the first time I showed after having Mackenzie. Oh, how you feeling going into show after you haven't done it in such a long time, and you're just off and having a baby and stuff? Right before I went in, it's like I'm probably not going to hang out.
They mean well, but you just have your
maybe ask me that like an hour after I've shown, not right as I'm going in. Yeah.
Have your group that gives you comfort. Have your time that needs to be. We see so many people 5 minutes before I forgot my hat or I forgot this. Have all that stuff set. And that gives a little comfort too. And your horses are the same way. Give them, let's say they take a 5-minute walk at home to kind of warm up and mentally set themselves up for a better ride. If at a show it takes 20, my gosh, be out there 20 minutes ahead of time and, whatever their routine is that they like, make sure you don't, they don't follow your script. You have to follow theirs a little bit. And if they need more trotting, some horses like loping, some horses you want to get into a little bit right before you show and wake them up a little bit. But, if it's a nervous horse and a nervous rider, our biggest one is, bring that horse's chin in, get comfort in knowing, okay, you're controlled. Get the people out there trotting. Sometimes, we'll tell customers to go trot, not for the horse's sake, just for their own sake, to go relax and do all that prep work. Mm-hmm. So that when you go in there, you're not thinking, oh, what am I supposed to do? You've been doing it for the last hour. You've been putting your leg on their belly and moving their hip to the side. You've been putting both legs on their belly and bringing that horse's head in, mentally bringing them in, and so you're prepared that way. I like to show maybe a little more touchy horses than some people. So I'll do a lot where I lope around and really, I'll lift that shoulder up, move that hip to the inside, and really get them to mentally come to me so that I know that they're with me as I go in there to show. And if I don't have that time, boy, that's not a good, comfortable feeling walking to center going, boy, I should have done this more.
Having them lope down enough is key. Having them lope down the right amount is definitely key. And then the other thing that I think is really effective is having something to tell your horse to do while they're standing still at center. So one of the things that I try to teach a lot of in my lessons is to be telling your horse what they should be doing rather than trying to tell them what not to do or get after them once they've done something wrong. You're always better to tell them what to do than to wait until they've done something wrong. So at center, if you get to center and you say, whoa, and you just take all of your aids off and you sit there and you expect your horse to sit there and look like some of the horses at the Futurity Finals where they're just so dialed in and paying attention, that may not happen for you. And what you can do, so what happens to a lot of horses, they get to center and they like to look up, they look at the judge, or they look back at their friends, or they look at the scary corner, or they look at something. One of the things that I like to practice before I go in, at home, before I go to show, things I practice at home is standing still after I've jogged or loped or walked or something, asking my horse to stop, and then wrapping my legs around and lifting my spurs up, lifting my hand and asking the horse to lift their belly up and drop their head while they're standing still without moving, without doing anything else. You can't do a lot of it. You don't want to do too much of it because they can get kind of sour on it if you just sit there and do it over and over and over again. But just a little bit of that where you teach your horse, I'm going to lift my spurs up into your belly. You're going to drop your head down and pay attention to me. And we're not moving. We're not doing anything. That's all we're doing. Then when you get to center and your horse starts to dance around, instead of them moving around and you telling them, don't go to the right, or don't go to the left, or don't go forward, don't go back, you can say, here, do this. You know this. Do this.
And they know it because you've taught them at home for hours. They know it
because you've taught them at home, and you're telling them something to do rather than just trying to balance the side to side and the forward and back. And, you're not just trying to back off and give them less. You're still in there giving them the direction that they need. And it's something that makes sense to them. Should we go back and see if there's anything else that we can answer with those things that people were saying before? I can't believe I'm wearing a hat again. It's the end of April right now when we're recording this, and it's going to feel like -7 tonight where we are. Okay, so where were we here? Won't stand still. Only time he has energy. So, nerves, I feel like, Haley, working on your own nerves at center, visualization of your pattern can be really, really handy so that you know your pattern really well. You know exactly what you're going to ask your horse to do before you go in. Know your pattern forwards and backwards and pretend like you're plunked into your pattern at any point and you could finish the pattern from there. knowing exactly how you're asking your horse to do things, knowing exactly what you're going to do if your horse does something wrong, how you're going to handle it, both in physically what you're going to do with your body and mentally how you're going to work through it. If you know your horse is going to be anxious when you get to center, loping him down the right amount, knowing your pattern, having all that visualization in your back pocket, then going in, giving him something to do when he starts to fidget, lifting your spur up slowly, staying relaxed, not taking it personally, lifting the belly up, dropping the head, then moving out slowly into whatever your next maneuver is. I feel like that is your best bet for that one. Backs up. You want to take that one?
So backing up usually got caused by the horse looking up and everybody getting nervous and they start snapping at the horse's mouth. For me, if one wants to back up and I hop on it, usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take hold of his face. I'm going to put both spurs on him.
And holding the face is key, because some people, when the horse backs up, they put their hand forward and then try to bump them forward to that. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just take hold of him and I just take both my spurs and I'm going to walk him and power walk him. I mean, like, I'm going to push him up into that bridle. And then when he walks forward, then I'm going to keep him walking, but just not as aggressively. And then I'm just going to come up and walk and maybe do like 5 little 5-foot circles, let him stop at center. He has the option. He can either be good.
This is your paid warm-up you're talking?
Yeah, anytime I'm schooling on him, paid warm-up, or there was a article, I forget if it was Loomis talking about Avila or Avila talking about, anyways, somehow they had swapped a horse with a youth kid one time, and they were talking about schooling horses where you school them 3 times to show them hard once. And I know nobody likes to ever think of it that much, but there's some truth to it. You know, we went to a little schooling deal here last weekend, and I just kept schooling on horses, and I think there's a lot of sense to that. You know, everybody thinks they want to go show, but you got to teach them to show. You know, before you go in the first time and make them spin and make them change leads and do everything at center, why not take them in there and teach them that this is an okay spot? You know, if they do back up, push them into that bridle. Don't let go of the bridle. Don't spur on. You know, if I put my spur on there and Flicka still is backing up, I just keep pushing him forward. Heck, if he backs up so hard he hits
He's going to hit the wall.
the wall helped you. You just keep him straight and let him, and then once he goes forward, let him know that's okay. And if he's backing up and I'm asking him to go forward, does that mean I'll grind into him? I will push into him. But you can't karate chop and poke him. You just sit there and go, you will go forward, because your brain has to go slower, and let him be that way.
I hope that helped, Marissa. Nervous twitches, kicking out a back foot, and mouthing the bit. We sort of talked about the mouthing the bit. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say about that?
I think they both go together. So
Yeah.
Kicking out, they're obviously a little worried that, I mean, first thing I would look at is there a little ulcers going on? Especially, you know, you just haul a horse to a horse show. You know, that might be a horse you put on a little ulcer meds. Keep their diet, keep eating lots of hay. You know, we're real big on, we have hay bags 24 hours a day at the shows. Well, we have hay in front of them 24 hours a day at home too. So if one has been kicked on a little bit at center and, you know, their belly's hurting them a little bit, yeah, they'll kick out. You know, your best bet is you just keep pushing them up in there. Keep your leg on them. That's the biggest thing. When they kick out, grind forward harder. When they release their legs and move forward, then you keep your leg on there, but just relax a little bit. Let them know that when he kicks out, you're not going to, I call it karate chop, but you know, you're not going to come in and kick them and poke them, but you are going to put your leg in there and drive them up. and you just keep doing it over and over. We had an old horse that a guy took to the show, and it had some ghosts in its closet. You know, took it there to see what the ghosts were. And yeah, the horse kicked out at him, and we just put him back and just kept, okay, do it over and over and over again. And eventually the horse gave him some lead changes and let him come through center nice, and
It's settled.
you know, and that has to happen. You know, you work through it and you get confidence. You get confidence not by never touching. Like I see lots of people, they say, oh, I don't even want to work on it. I just get around it. You get confidence by getting in there, working at it again and again and again until you get it right. That's when you get them confident, horse and person. Leap into the spin.
Robin's saying leaping into the spin, a lot of energy going into it.
Yeah, so that's the same thing. They're just waiting to get poked on. They need to put your spurs in going in there, you know, walk them out of center. When I do a paid warm-up, a lot of time I'll bring them up into center. You know, I might set them up for a lope departure, put my leg on there, and I just don't cluck and let them lope off. I go, you know, 20, 30 feet walking like that. You know, if I have both legs on them walking into center, and then I just take my right one away, they know where I want them to go. It kind of draws them in.
Yeah, having both feet on. So if you get to center and you stop and you know, release for a second, then taking a hold of them first, then opening your leg, then pushing them into the spin, and being really methodical about splitting those pieces up instead of getting to center, stopping, and then asking the horse to go into the spin all at one time. I feel like slowing that down a little bit and the horse knowing where your aids are can be really helpful. And also how you're practicing your spin at home. There's probably some...
I was going to say, that's a big one for me too. When I do a paid warm-up, I will, if a horse gets a little jumpy, I will actually let him spin a little bit, put both my feet on, take him out of the spin, trot him forward a little bit, kind of hard, let him come back to that spin. But it's the same exercise I've done at home a million times, where it's harder to do them trot circles I'm going to do, so they're looking to actually stay
the
locked
spins,
in.
the release, yeah. We actually had our clinic, our show team clinic on the weekend, and did a really cool exercise for spinning like that, where we're doing counterflexion into the spin. Sarah, my mare, especially doesn't like the patterns where you're stopped at center at the start of the pattern. She wants to go, and if we just go into the lope, we're okay. But if we have to start with spins, we travel in our spins, which we don't do any other time.
So you need to set that up, make that horse believe he's showing. 9 times out of 10 when they travel towards the gate, back towards where the horses were, you know, you just walked away. So when I do a paid warm-up, I'm going to actually let them wind a little bit out there towards that gate, and then I'm going to wind them, keep spinning them and keep trotting circles, and actually wind them the other way, so that again they know, oh, I have to stay in center, I have to come over here.
So if you're not sure what he means by winding them, he means like actually moving a step or two every time you come around. So every time your horse starts to leak out towards, usually it's towards the gate, you're actually taking them back the other way a couple of steps in that spin, but you're still staying in the spin. You're just having them, you're controlling where they travel essentially in the spin, and it's the opposite way.
And I might end up 10, 15 feet the opposite end of center, so that when I go to show, it's easy to stay still.
So we kind of talked about your horse getting sluggish at center. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Basically keeping them sharp and keeping them paying attention, because it's not really that they're relaxed at center, it's that they're tuning you out at center, right? Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that part?
I feel like the biggest one with that is you really have to be so methodical that, like for me, I kiss to spin. So when I'm working on them at home, I don't keep kicking on them. I kiss once. I expect them to speed up. If they do not, then I kick them. I expect 1 mile per hour faster. If they do speed up, I do not kick them, so that they understand.
Kiss
You know,
means
this-
go, and if you don't go,
Yeah,
there's
if
repercussion.
you go, I
If
treat
go,
you good, and
life's
if not, I'm gonna get after you. And that's
Yeah.
knowing your horse. And if you keep kicking them, they just kind of zone out a little bit. The horse I actually just got off of is quite lazy, and I do that with him all the time. Is I will kiss once, give him that second, either go or else he gets himself in trouble, and that controls his adrenaline so that he knows the rules are always the same. You know, and I think that goes for lazy horses or, a little more hyper horses. They just have to know the rules, and that's so important.
And now he's chewing on our barn over there.
Yeah. And she owns them.
I own him when he's bad, and then he owns him when he's being a good boy. Okay, I feel like, do you change leads at center only while showing and never at home, or do you do both? It's a good question.
I change leads everywhere. I do not change leads and go the other direction. I will change leads at center a lot. I will circle. Let's say I'm circling to the right. I'll change leads. Now I'm actually on a counter canter back to the right.
Change from counter
I'll
canter
go
to counter
diagonal.
canter.
There's never a spot. I want to change leads. And a horse that's anticipating lead changes, a lot of people say, don't ever change them at center. I actually want to change them more at center and bring them back the other way. I want to, do all the stuff with them. I'll do a lot of fast circles, change and go slow, because I get confidence, and so does the horse, if I've worked on it so much that I got it right. And the big difference is you have to do it right. You can't just change leads and take off the other way or let them push off or whatever. Do I do a lot of, maybe in a paid warm-up, I'll come across center, I set them up like I'm going to change leads, and then I just don't. I set them up again, I don't, so that they're thinking, okay, he can set me up all he wants, there's not anything coming after. And then I might counter canter half a circle. My lead change program involves I change leads everywhere on my arena. I don't think there's an inch of that arena that doesn't get changed leads on.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, I feel like what a lot of people do is they always change at center and then they rarely change elsewhere. And you don't do that. You change everywhere in the arena. The vast majority of the time it's not at center, but when you do need to school it at center, it's at center from counter canter to counter canter or into a counter canter, or sometimes just setting them up and actually changing. I hope that's clear for Robin. The other thing I think, as we're talking so much about paid warm-ups, is you don't have to know what to do in every scenario in order to make good use of a paid warm-up. You can have, like for myself, I have to plan ahead what I'm going to do and how I'm going to school it, and I actually have to kind of have a plan for what my paid warm-up is, rather than just do it all on the fly.
I think one of the biggest things when you do paid warm-ups or you're working at home, like when Lindsay says about she has to have a plan, my biggest plan on any of my paid warm-ups is I want to go in and find a spot that horse pushes on me, and that could be he gets antsy at center, that's him pushing on me. It could be he gravitates towards the gate. The arena we were at the other day, my 1 3-year-old, didn't love the one end of the arena. So I just stayed down there. I found my spot and I just kept pushing back on him until he felt good, and then I would take him away from that spot. And I think that's the same at home. If you're having difficulties changing leads at center and that horse is kind of pushing off, you need the help as far as, are you pushing his hip into that lead change or are you poking him? That's the first one. And if there's a a stiff spot, let's say he changes leads and takes his chin, or he pushes his hip or shoulder, whatever, you've found the spot that you need to work on, and you just keep pushing on that shoulder or hip or chin, wherever it is they are, until you get it so good that you go, I got that mastered. I now have confidence that when I go to show that, I will be okay. And does that involve some days I come out and maybe only work on one maneuver? Lots of times. Because I want it so embedded in that horse's brain. I need it so embedded in my brain. There's a difference of me showing a horse, and it's everybody, but one that I trust or one that I just, we just ride. The ones that we can trust and I know they've been through it. And a way that I always talk about it, it isn't that the horse is perfect. They have messed up in every single spot I've ever trained them on, and then I fixed it. That's how I got confidence in it, is because they know the wrongs, they know the rights, they know where they want to be. If I have a horse, and it's happened numerous times, I've said, oh, this horse has never missed a lead. I didn't have to push on it as hard. Went to go show them. They were a little scared, and they were looking up at that judge just a tad. I went to go change leads, and they didn't change leads very well. But if I know that those ones are the problems or something, and I've learned to do this, I think, more as the years go on. Don't take anything for granted. Find every little spot that they're going to push on you on and fix it, and have that confidence. And those horses show the best, the longest, because there's never a hole in that training program where...
Yeah, you can't buy something and think it's broken that you can just cruise through without picking a fight. You have to keep finding the weaknesses and working on them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Get into that spot, that. And that's the idea of paid warm-ups, is you can find those stiff spots, whether that be their chin because they're at center kind of dancing. They don't like to sit still. That's the spot. That's where you need to work. You need to trot lots of circles in center. You need to pull on that chin. You need to push that belly. And if it involves 3 paid warm-ups that day and that's all you get accomplished, your horse will show best because you have made Flicka say yes ma'am or yes sir. By the time you got to the horse show, you don't need to school on can they stop or can they spin or whatever. You need them to say, okay, we're in public. It's like taking your kid to Walmart. Do they still behave at Walmart? Because the rules are the same, but you have to reinforce that sometimes that, the rules are still the same.
You have to reinforce the rules when you go anywhere new because they'll throw stuff at you that they never did at home.
Sure. When they're in public, that's the whole idea of paid warm-ups, is that you're saying to that horse, you have to ride the same. You have to still do all the same stuff. And the one that I cringe at is when I see somebody, they're in a paid warm-up, they, let's say the horse kind of ducks off in a lead change and takes them a little bit, and they keep going. They just let the horse get away with it a little bit. And then you haven't used your paid warm-up well. You found the spot, the horse chugged off on you. Come back and do it again and again and again and again. And that horse, even let's say you didn't go work on stops that day, but you worked on that lead change and got him behaving there better, he will always show better in every maneuver just because you've brought him back and made it go, yes ma'am, yes sir, this is my job. And that's the job of a paid warm-up.
All right. Taken up an hour of your time already. So
Has it been an hour?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we're going to shut her down. Hopefully you have some useful things from in that discussion, and you are feeling like, oh gosh, who was it last week that we were talking to who was like, I watched your live and I thought I can do this. And she went out and it was Louise, I think. I watched your live and I thought I can do this. And it motivated her to go out and try some things. She felt like she was called out because some of the things we were saying, don't do this, don't do this. She was like, I definitely do all of those. So hopefully you got a little piece of that tonight. You got some ideas about what you want to do with your horse, and some things that you think might make some improvement, and we wish you good luck. We'd love to hear about your success. If you have a topic that you'd like for us to cover, I know somebody did say they wanted us to cover some paid warm-up stuff. We are going through that inside of Momentum in a couple of weeks. If you're interested in finding out more about Momentum, the website, the info is at momentumhcph.com, or you can just shoot me a message. If you have another topic that you'd like to submit, hayescofelph@gmail.com. And we will be back next week on Tuesday at 7:30 to answer another question and try to help you guys keep going with your horses. Thanks for being here with us tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Good night.